If you're not familiar with these calls, this is I4CP, the Institute for Corporate Productivity. We're a human capital research firm. We specialize in discovering the people practices that drive high performance in organizations. We define that by these four common business metrics: revenue growth, market share, profitability, and customer satisfaction. And in our human capital research, we like to tease out what high-performing companies, that top quartile, are doing distinctly different in their human capital practices from the lower quartile. We do that through our research studies, through community events, interviews that produce case studies, and a lot more. We're a member-based organization. You see here just a small sampling of our hundreds of member companies. They range from very large organizations like Amazon, Microsoft, 3M, Visa, and many others, as well as a smattering of smaller organizations, some well under 5,000 employees, under 2,000 employees, including some startups. We've got a growing cohort of unicorn startup companies in membership. If you're not familiar with membership, you can learn more by visiting our website, just reaching out to any I4CP employee, and would be happy to tell you more about what that entails. If you're with a member company, special welcome to you today. Great to have you with us. My name is Tom Stone. I'm a senior research analyst here at I4CP, and I'm the most regular co-host of these events. This week, I'm joined by my colleague, Pat Murakami, Senior Director of Member Services. Good morning, Pat.
Hey there. How's everyone?
Great. Good to have you with us. I saw in the chat you mentioned, of course, you're from Chicago, and you said go Cubs. You and I are both big baseball fans, so it's nice to get together here for this session. We've got, as the name implies, Next Practice is weekly. We've got a great lineup of sessions for the next 3 weeks. You see the guests that we'll have coming up from ServiceNow, BDO Digital, and CPSI, and then we'll continue on from that. We only take breaks when there's a holiday, either the day of or right around there. We'll take a break for the 4th of July here in the US, Thanksgiving, things like that. But otherwise, you can count on our sessions being pretty much every Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. We also have sessions geared more time-wise for our colleagues globally in the APAC and EMEA regions. These are on different days of the week, obviously different times, more geared towards them. We don't have them weekly. They're more like monthly, but we cover a lot of the same topics: culture, DE&I, the role of AI in HR, total rewards, talent acquisition, learning and development, you name it. We have great guests for those calls as well. So for some of you on the call that maybe live in Europe or the APAC region, you should sign up for those because they're probably easier for you to attend. But for everyone on the call, I'd encourage you to share this information with your global colleagues if you're with a global firm, so that they're aware and can join those events that are more appropriate time-wise for them. One thing I wanted to also plug, we've been spending a lot of time in our research and with a lot of our sessions with our members and in public forums like this, looking into AI and its role in HR, and what HR needs to step up and do to help their organizations. One thing that we've created that was asked for by our members is a facilitator's guide on how to upskill your HR team in AI. In AI-related aspects of work. So that's available to our I4CP member organization. So if you're on the call and you're with a member company, you can access that today. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Pat to introduce our special guests and lead the conversation today.
All right, and I'm hoping technology stays with me. I'm sorry to be off camera, but technology is not being friendly that way. So let's see how we can do. I'm excited to be welcoming Michael and Allison on this call. Michael and I have actually worked together. We figured out 11 years of membership time with I4CP. Welcome to both of you. You have both had such impressive careers in HR and L&D in particular. And I was just wondering if you could introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your roles at Citi.
Great. I'll kick it off. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Tom. Great to be with both of you. For all of those of you who have not met, my name is Michael Killingsworth. I'm the head of, as you can see there, head of learning for USPB, which is U.S. Personal Banking. Happy anniversary to me because as of yesterday, I completed my 1 year with Citi. For those of you that didn't know, that I've been now with Citi and working with them, which has been absolutely wonderful. It's been great. Those of you that are familiar with some of my other work prior to this, I worked for another bank called Cross River. Before that, a Switzerland-based organization, ABB, Shell, and American Airlines. And as a result of those organizations, I've actually been working with I4CP for about 19 years prior to meeting Pat 11 years ago and working directly with her. So I've been involved with I4CP for some time. So being able to join any I4CP call is always a thrill for me. So thanks for this opportunity. Our team that we work in Citi is working with U.S. personal banking, and this organization sits in the broader learning organization called Citi Learning and Culture. And it is led by someone that many of you would also know, Cameron Hedrick. And the Citi Learning and Culture organization sits in the broader HR organization. So that's how we're set up within Citi. And the business that we support, U.S. Personal Banking, to give you a little bit more insight, is a business that delivers client experience across retail banking, retail services, and branded cards. And we're serving more than 70 million clients worldwide, one of our largest businesses, and we're quite excited to be able to work with U.S. Personal Banking. Today, we're going to be talking to you about an award that we recently got from I4CP, talking about our transformation through an agile journey. And I want to hand it over to Allison to introduce herself, but I first want to say that she is the pioneer of this. So she started this whole journey for us a couple of years ago, saying we need to shift the way we work and we need to do it using the next best practice. And so it's great to have her join me here and to bring in her insights as to what it's been like even before I joined Citi. And so a lot of the questions that you're going to have, I'll probably throw them into her direction because she'll have a lot of the history with this journey. So Allison, meet the group.
Thank you, Michael. My name's Allison Stiefken, and I lead the program execution team for U.S. Personal Banking under Michael. So my team takes care of multiple things. We do workforce management, workforce planning, if you will, a technology team, so all of our classroom technology for U.S. Personal Banking, take care of all of the communications, and then we also have an Agile execution team. And so that's comprised of project managers, change practitioners, Agile coaches, and our learning operations team. So I have had the pleasure of working at Citi for 33 years. And one of the things that I love most about our organization is it's very strong focus on career mobility, which has really allowed me to serve many, many roles during my tenure at Citi. So I've spent quite a few years in operations doing various jobs, spent some time in technology. My heart's with project management, so I've done multiple tours in project management, and then most recently in our HR and learning and development team. So I'm delighted to be here today. Tom and Pat, thank you for inviting us.
Well, as noticed there, that you were a winner of an award, and we're very proud of that. Zeta, thank you for putting the link to their case study in the chat. And I'd recommend going on and not only reading their case study, but all of the other winners as well. So we have a poll up that we'd like everyone to participate in and talk to us a little bit about what's going on in your organization. As we mentioned, this initiative is focused on transforming the USPB learning organization at Citi to Agile. And that's a mindset project management approach that separates work into short feedback loops, emphasizes continuous collaboration and improvement, and really is a game changer for a lot of organizations. It's something that isn't always easy to execute on. So I can understand why it took you a little bit of an approach, but while the audience is sharing their business challenges with us, Michael, can you talk to us about the business challenges Citi was facing?
Yep, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this poll results because I think it's going to be completely aligned with exactly what we were dealing with. So when you look at the improving speed to market, we knew that we had to do this. Feedback from the business was that our response time was way too low. So we need to pick up the pace. We really needed to deepen our connection with the business, which means that we needed to increase our business acumen. How do you do that? You get close to the business, and that's what we knew we had to do fairly quickly, and that's been the success, actually, that's led us to our results. And with all other companies, there's always those competing demands. It's coming from all different directions, and so you had to prioritize how do you meet those demands, and with that, we had to deliver transparency and visibility to it. So you see here, well, look at the results. We're all
Wow.
oh, great.
Yeah.
You're in the same place we were when we started this space. So we asked the right questions. That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
absolutely. I'd say most people chose at least two responses here. Obviously, the high one being respond more quickly to strategic shifts and organizational changes, coming in at close to 60% of respondents, but really all of them over 40%. So interesting spread.
I'm betting some people selected all of the above.
Yeah, I'm sure some did, like you all at Citi, for sure.
Well, yeah, I have to say I'm very glad to see this because what that tells me now is that for the next few minutes that we're going to spend with all of you, that we have some information that you'll find very valuable. So we'll show you how we addressed these particular challenges that you all have just shown. You had some of the similar challenges. Prior to this transformation journey, I thought you'd find it interesting to know that we were actually three separate learning teams, and we were supporting this business. So you can imagine with three separate teams, we're delivering different varying experiences. So that needed to be addressed. We were organized in what's called centers of excellence, which many of you are probably set up that way. And we delivered to our advisory team, and all of that the information flowed through other teams in more of a linear way. So our goal was to increase the responsiveness, but also really to elevate our business partner engagement and our business acumen. So that was critical to meet these challenges. As I mentioned earlier, Allison started this a couple of years ago, and she's been intimately involved in this initiative. So a lot of the information she will share more details with you, but we're looking forward to the questions that you have at the end. So start thinking about those when we get there.
So Allison, do you want to share with us about how you did address the challenges?
Yeah, you bet, Pat. Well, we started by forming a small team who did quite a bit of research on various organizational structures as well as operating models, in addition to really looking at transformations, right? What are some of the best practices? Why do transformations fail? And we did find that one of the many reasons that teams struggle with embracing agility is that their culture and their organizational structure are largely incompatible with agile ways of working. And so as a result of that, we proposed that we move away from that center of excellence structure that, by the way, had served us well at a point in time that Michael described earlier, and instead moved towards small cross-functional self-managed teams that were focused on a specific customer base. And so internally, we refer to these teams as Agile squads. Now, Pat, we did think it might be fairly challenging, right, to jump right into these adaptive self-managed teams without first creating some sort of a foundational structure that would help us to cultivate empowered and adaptable teams. And so early on in our journey, we actually adopted a Helix operating model that would provide that foundational structure needed to effectively stand up and scale Agile squads. And then from there, we created a vision and a strategy to transform many things. I mean, we really needed to look at our structure, our processes, our system, and even our culture. And so that strategy helped us transform 300 plus geographically dispersed learning professionals to better align with Agile ways of working.
So I believe that you've got a slide that you're going to share to kind of illuminate the logistical challenge. And in looking through the slide deck, I thought, wow, if there's a slide that anyone is going to really want to lean in on, it's this one.
Yeah, and so don't panic. There is so much going on this slide, and I am not going to go into every one of these bullets in detail. I did want to have something for the audience to take away, though, so that they could reference it in the future. And so we knew that from the research that we had done, one of the top reasons Agile transformations fell is the leaders treat it like an event, right? They establish a day and time. They tell their people, we need you to be Agile. Potentially, they give them some education on tools and processes. And then when that date arrives, right, it's turnkey. You were working this way, yay, go forth, be Agile. But the reality is that people really have to learn to be Agile before they can do Agile. And so we took an evolutionary approach to introducing Agile ways of working to allow really ample time and space for the organization to adjust its mindset and culture. So what you see here really is a multi-year, 3-year actually, multi-year, multi-pronged journey. So for purposes of today, because I don't want to bore you with all the details, let me just talk to you about our strategy. And I'm going to walk you through our strategy in sections. On the left-hand side of the slide that you're looking at right now, there's a scale. And some of you that are familiar with Agile, you might recognize the components of this scale as the Agile onion, components of an Agile onion, which is really a popular metaphor that describes the various layers of complexity that are involved in Agile ways of working. And so you can kind of see in that scale there at the top, being Agile is less visible, but much more powerful, while the tools and practices of doing Agile are more visible, but less powerful. And we use this as our guide to help us establish the rest of our strategy. So if you look in the middle section there, it's split horizontally. And that really represents different streams of work and different things that we were trying to accomplish that were really being led by our wonderful and fabulous Agile scaling team, who I noticed several of you are on here today. So congratulations in helping to put this marvelous strategy together. Let's talk about the top half of the slide first. That strategy was really focused on being Agile. So this was really about our structure and culture transformation journey for our entire population, where we were really focusing on changing people's mindsets and really getting them ingrained in the values and principles of Agile. So in addition to bringing together multiple teams and moving to a helix model, which Michael and I talked about earlier, we also invested a significant amount of time in upskilling our staff on soft skills. So I've listed just a few of the formal offerings on the slide here, but that's just really the tip of the iceberg in terms of the formal education, experience, and exposure opportunities that we curated for our team. And then simultaneously with all the soft skills learning that we were doing, our leaders, all of our leaders, as well as our culture team, were working on our environment. So day in, day out, working on our environment, really focusing on psychological safety, collaboration, giving and receiving feedback, all really core things that are needed for adaptive, self-managed teams to thrive. So top half, all about the mindset and the culture. The bottom half was where we wanted to test and learn on things that were more related to doing Agile. So we selected 2 pilot teams. There were 7 to 8 people per team, and these folks received the same learning experience as the rest of the organization, in addition to us starting to introduce the practices, tools, and processes of Agile. For us personally, Scrum and Kanban works best, and so the frameworks, the Agile frameworks that we're doing to do Agile are Scrum and Kanban. We created a 6-week dojo. That's in orange because that's like a best practice for us that we can talk about later if you'd like. But we created a 6-week Agile dojo, which really allows our pilot teams a safe place to test and learn, along with building the collaboration, conflict resolution, and feedback skills that they're going to need to be self-managed. We gathered feedback at regular intervals, Pat, and then we continued to really refine our onboarding process in preparation for our scaling decision, which you can kind of see there in the middle. The two things kind of converge, if you will, there in the middle of the slide. I will say, Pat, during this time, we also really needed to work on some of our processes and tools, and so bringing transparency and visibility into the work that we're doing to help us with to manage a book of work. So we had another work stream that was working on that. So Michael actually joined our organization. Oh gosh, Michael, I think it was like 2 months, close to 2 months before our scaling decision toll gate there in the middle. So Michael, do you want to provide your perspective on what you experienced coming into an organization that was mid-transformation?
Absolutely. I think you all would find this interesting. As you know, I said earlier that I joined Citi, and it was May 1st, which is yesterday, a year ago. But coming into this, I was told immediately that you need to get into this agile journey that the team is leading, because in 2 months, it's already been decided this date needed, there's a critical decision. Do we stop what we're doing today and go back to the traditional mode of working, or do we go forward? Going forward means that we scale the entire organization, all 300 plus of us that we mentioned earlier. So that's quite the challenge coming in for me, onboarding into the new company, onboarding with the team, and yet knowing this critical decision needed to be made. So I did a lot of education. The team was phenomenal because they brought me together and spent hours and days educating me on what it means to be an agile organization, what they've been through for the last couple of years, and what this would actually mean going forward. I think the biggest impact for me was I joined several videos where the squads were talking to business partners and asking them what they thought about this way of working. And I actually reached out to several business partners and did an informal, if you will, interview with them. And when they were telling me that there's no way they would work in any other, there's no way they'd go back to working the way that in the other way of working, the traditional mode of working, and that they really highly valued this, that they just couldn't believe that we were working at the speed that we were, and that we were getting the results that we were actually getting. So it's, we made the decision, go forward. And that's what we're doing. So we are scaling. So by July, in 2 months, everyone that we've identified to be on a squad will be in a squad. And then after that, we start looking at, as any organization, look at continuous improvement to make sure that what we've done is we've done it well, and that we sustain our performance going forward.
So I want to go back to something that Allison was talking about earlier regarding the top of this, the soft skills, and the idea that on Tuesday at 10, we will be agile. It doesn't work like that. So I guess one of the questions I just wanted to ask was, how did you ensure that everyone was moving along at pace? And that you had, I mean, we know from our own cultural research that you have to watch for naysayers, and you have to look for the people who aren't supporting the cultural change you're implementing. What did you do to ensure that there was no laggards to this process?
Yeah, that's a great question, Pat. We had a very robust change management model that we layered on top of this, where, you know, you can kind of think of this, and again, we went slow. We purposely went slow so that we could let people have a journey that was their own, and that, you know, we were pulling them along with us instead of pushing them. And so we started with a grassroots change management movement,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Small group of agile practitioners, let's build excitement around this. And we started to grow our change management change champions, if you will. But in addition to that, we used the ADKAR model. That was the model that we chose to use to really bring awareness and to manage some of the resistance that will take place in any, whether you're going to Agile or, you know, any type of org transformation or change that you do. You know, you need to get in front of and help build awareness and excitement to manage some of that resistance. And then, Agile just isn't for everybody. There will be, as you go through your journey, some people that choose not to work in this fashion.
Well, and psychological safety is so important, particularly in a team environment. I don't want to steal the thunder of some upcoming research we're going to be releasing, but mark my words that team effectiveness, psychological safety is a critical component. Watch for that, members, in a new upcoming release. We have a question from Joel Tranco, who wanted to know, how did you ensure that Scrum Masters and product owners stayed in sync and balanced priorities of the learning teams and the business teams?
Yeah, great question.
And I see you smiling, Allison.
Well, I mean, I will say we're still working through some of that as we scale. So we'll have to lay a scaling governance on top of this. But right now, we have Agile coaches, Scrum Masters, product owners, all key roles in this Agile methodology, right? And so we have an actual enterprise coach. Anthony Arevalo is our enterprise Agile coach, and they're really responsible right now to ensure that all of these pieces stay connected. We also implemented guilds, and I think that the guild concept is a great way to keep so we have a Scrum Master guild, we have a product owner guild, and so putting together guilds where folks can come together to talk about best practices, obstacles, things that they're doing are really important. And then I will also say our pilot teams, our pilot squad teams were integral to just helping us understand what are the pain points, when are we moving too fast, when are we moving too slow. So there's a lot of interconnections that you have to do with ensuring that your communication, you've got a robust communication process and really that you're over communicating. Hopefully that answered your question.
Okay, and then before we move on to another question, just clarification about guilds. Are guilds like a center of excellence?
Guilds are a self-organized development for, I wouldn't call them centers of excellence. They're focused, it's self-managed. They're coming together to talk about, so it's a place for them to learn, where they all come together to self-learn on topics that they bring to the table themselves. So we're not organizing those for them or letting them know what they need to talk about and how frequently they need to meet. They do that on their own.
So in the chat,
a couple people in the chat noting, so maybe a little bit more like a community of practice, more than a center of excellence. Yeah.
Yes, whoever said that, thank you, because the words were escaping me. That's exactly what that is.
So, but again, though, that's a safe space to come together and say, I don't understand, I'm struggling with, can anybody help me? And it's a mutually agreed upon safe space. It
is, Pat, and your continued kind of reference to psychological safety is the key to making all of this work. If you don't have that core component, the change won't stick. Okay, so before we move on to the now how well it's going, one more question where you're being asked a little bit about the changes of way of working from going from a COE model to the Agile team model. Some question from Valerie around how did the work change for the teammates? So in our COE model, work moved like a conveyor belt, right, from one group to another. So it would come in, and our advisory team would bring it in, right, and then it would move to a design and development team, and then it would move to a delivery team. So that was our old model. In our new model, all of those disciplines are in a single team. So they are co-creating together. And so while their capability, am I a designer, am I an advisor, that those skill sets, they're still doing those skill sets, but they're doing them together. So that our build is more of an iterative, and I have such a hard time with that word. So they're building the content together as a team. So it's how they work. It's not what they're doing, it's how they work that has changed significantly. Having that cross collaboration team, that's what gives us the speed to market that we're looking for. And then what we have found is that people naturally start to cross-train. So they start to upskill and cross-skill themselves into those other capabilities, if you will. So before, there wasn't a lot of visibility between the groups. They were a little bit siloed. And so, you know, a designer may not have visibility into what a day in the life of an advisor looks like, but in these squads, because they work together every day so closely, they really learn each other's jobs, begin to respect each other's jobs, and they begin to cross-train into each other's roles. So what they're doing is really becoming, you know, very skilled learning professionals.
So what I truly loved about this slide is that we are here, because we see where we are on your journey. Just past scaled onboarding, just past 1 year with Michael on the team. So can you talk a little bit about the key learnings that you've had from this journey, which I gotta believe are huge and quite a list. And I think that the people on the call would really like to hear what you're learning, where it's taking you next.
We can certainly do that. And I think what will help in setting up what we learned from that is to share some of the results that we've gotten from this, where I told you that where that led to me making the decision that, yes, we're going to scale going forward. And some of the results, I know that getting an award such that we did from I4CP, you need to have a lot of strong results to show that the work that you're doing is validated. And so on the next slide, you'll see, if you go ahead and hit enter where the whole slide will come up, we have, yeah, there you go, bring up everything. Because I don't want to read everything to you. You can see this, but we looked at it from the work that we're doing. What are the employees feeling? What are the stakeholders feeling? Well, how does our product effectiveness, how is that changing from creativity and innovation? And also looking at the operational E&E, which all of you on this call always focus on efficiency and effectiveness. So you can see the increase in the production there. And that was pretty substantial to us. But ultimately, we knew that we saw from the feedback we're getting that we were speeding up our decision making. We're speeding up the time to market. And we were prioritizing our work. We're increasing our transparency, the business acumen, and the connections were phenomenal. So ultimately, we learned that we were fostering a culture of learning through experimentation and also learning through our failures. So we would identify what the failure is, we'd celebrate that, identify the change, and move forward. Now, we also put some data in this submission for this award, but hot off the press, I actually have it here right in front of me. I wanted to seize this opportunity to share with you because we're quite excited about it. Working with this business, we just announced our Q1 results in U.S. personal banking. And if we looked back, and matter of fact, I joined the U.S. retail banking call town hall yesterday, where we were talking about this award and the results that we've been able to get through the use of squads, the squad work that has been happening. And in the last 2 quarters, we've identified that we've launched new products across the business, upskilling more than 10,000 colleagues in growing deposits, core markets, and prudent growth in mortgage. So I'm not making this up. I actually have it here right in front of me. In addition to that, in our Q1 learning wins is that we've upskilled over 6,500 mortgage learners, 3,400 in branch learners, and 230 business bankers have improved in their processes and the ways that they work. All of that through the squad work. And so I thought, because it was hot off the press, I thought I would share it with you today, just to give you a few more numbers. Now, what have we learned from this on the next slide? And this is our final one. Is, as Allison said at the very beginning, it's being versus doing, that it's a mindset change. And like she said, it isn't for everyone that you see there. So you need to expect resistance. This is no different from any other transformation. If you're going to go through an organizational transformation, these are some of the learnings that you need to anticipate. And we experienced it in several different areas. And you have to shift from that command and control, where we were just talking about psychological safety and the independent decision making. It was a bit of a shift for several people to say, wait a minute, I want somebody to come in and tell me what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. but instead they were making their own decisions and being their own leaders.
We also recognize fairly quickly that self-managed teams require special skills. So, invest in the soft skills training, invest in your culture. Your culture needs to be stable, right? You need to be agile before you do agile. So get your psychological safety and your culture, your giving and receiving feedback, collaboration skills, get those all honed up before you start to do agile. And then the dojo has, I think that really is our key to success in getting our squads up and running. So create a safe place for folks to test and learn. Our business partners, you need to bring your business partners along on the journey with you. We co-create with our business partners. So, get them used to frequent delivery cycles, incremental frequent delivery cycles, so that they can embrace that MVP and iteration, if you will. And then, evolutionary change is the key. Go slow. I mean, I don't know that it will take 3 years. Some organizations, I'm sure, can do it a little bit faster. We have a large organization that processes a large volume of work. So we wanted to make sure that we were transforming while continuing to serve the business and continuing with the volume of work that we needed to do. So that weighed into the timing. And then progress over perfection. Everybody's journey is different. Allow people their personal journey. Everybody needs to go through change at their own pace. And so you need to be patient and get your leadership team involved in helping people through that ADKAR model, if you will, get some change champions involved in there, and then embrace failures. That was something that was a little bit difficult for us at first, is to really look at failure as a first attempt in learning, if you will.
And just to finalize what our key learnings were into 3 big areas: champion, sponsorship, and change management. And that will drive you to success of your transformation.
There's just
say those again.
Champion, sponsor, and change management. So developing the champions that become your advocates for this, making sure that you've got sponsorship even from the top. So before we ever even started this journey, I mentioned Cameron earlier is the head of the Citi Learning and Culture. So we got his support, his sponsorship, and we put a strong emphasis and continue to put a strong emphasis on change management.
There's just so much to like and endorse on these last 2 slides around how you did it, and then the learnings and the advice, because to go from command control is hard. I mean, it's just really hard and counter to the way that a lot of businesses operate. And I do love that it's a journey, because you don't just flip it on, like we said before, at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday and become agile. It's got to be a process, and you've got to work with everyone. So just really, excuse me, rich information here. We've got a few questions in the chat. I want to go back to, there was one, you mentioned your team has 300 learning professionals. How many overall teammates are in the USPB?
That's a great, oh wait, I didn't know this answer. I asked it yesterday, right around 20,000. I was like, wait a minute, I was gonna look that up, and I did. I went and talked to someone who knew. In the business itself is around 20,000.
Okay, great. So a question from Nicole. Can you share more about the dojo? What was in a dojo? What was their charter? Describe a little bit how that works.
Yeah. So the dojo is where they're learning their foundational skills in doing Agile. So, this is where they're going to learn Scrum. But there's a lot of, the dojo is meant, and I'm trying to be careful, because there's some folks on here that are coming into the dojo. So they're going to start their Agile journey soon, and they're getting into the dojo. So hopefully I'm not surprising them, but this is a place where we are doing accelerated sprint cycles. And so we're teaching them how to go through those Agile ceremonies, if you will, in an accelerated fashion. And so instead of taking 2 weeks to sprint, we'll do a sprint in the entire day, in one day, so that they're looking through all of the ceremonies. However, we are also introducing obstacles, if you will, purposefully within the dojo, because this is where they're learning their collaboration skills. So the intent of the dojo is for them to form as a team. They're coming in as individuals. Some of them have never even worked together before, and we want to bring them out of this journey as a team. And so this is a place where we are forcing that rapid forming, storming, norming cycle, in addition to teaching them their agile ceremonies, if you will.
Why
and
does
it's
it
a
sound,
safe place for them to do that.
why does it sound like one of those locked room puzzles to me?
It totally is, Pat. In fact, what we encourage our management team and our agile sponsors and to leave them alone. Like, they need to go into the squad and they need to be left alone. No interference. You're right. They're locked in a room, and they'll get out of that room and they can come through it and come through on the other side of the team. We do find that storming starts to take place around week 2. So they come into the dojo, they're super excited to get started. And then around that 2nd or 3rd week, they're like, oh, I'm not sure this is for me. This is really hard. This is harder than I thought it would be. I'm not sure that I want to do this. And then week 6, right, they come back and say, oh my gosh, that was amazing. I love my team. I love Agile, right? At first they're saying, I'm not sure that all this soft skills is needed. We know how to collaborate. We know how to give and, at the 6 weeks, they'll tell you, oh yeah, we needed that.
So some of the same feelings maybe that you get from, I think they're called escape rooms, that, it's frustration in moments, but without the escape room architecture or framework maybe, but a lot of the same experience, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. They will feel a range of emotions in that 6 weeks, and that is exactly what we're hoping to accomplish.
So one question was, are the dojo events in person?
I wish that, co-location is one of the Agile principles, but the reality is we have 300 plus geographically dispersed individuals. And so our folks cannot be co-located. With that being said, though, it's cameras on, right? I mean, we have tried to replicate an in-person experience as much as possible through the tools that we use.
So definitely being in the moment on the call, actively participating.
Absolutely.
Okay, so a great question that I was actually wondering about, what were some of the key resistance issues that you experienced in early days?
I think it depended on where you sat in the organization. And so we're going to get, in the early days, it was the movement away from a leader-led organization, right? Where the leaders are coming out with, this is what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, how we're going to do it. And so that feels really uncomfortable for leaders to let go of some of that stuff. So, we had the kind of the leader resistance that we were working hard to overcome. But then we also had folks that were stepping into the dojo. So a shout out to Squad 1 and 2. I see many of your faces on here today. That we were still working through the framework. We were testing and learning. We knew we were going to change our culture, because being Agile, every organization can benefit from being Agile, from the culture shift. The doing Agile pieces, we were a little skeptical. Will Scrum work? Will Kanban work? People think about these as a technology-based thing, not something that you do in learning. And so our squads, right, they were like, well, how do we do this? What are we supposed to do when we were in here? So I don't know that it was resistance, but there was excitement, but there was just like, they had to shift their thinking into, we're going to figure it out as we go, Pat, right? Like, there isn't a cookie cutter playbook here. the squads were going to help us build what we needed to do as we scaled. And I think that there was some excitement, and for some folks maybe watching, a little bit of resistance about do I want to do that? Do I want to work in that way?
I also want to add, Pat, that when I mentioned earlier that at the very early days that you need to have sponsorship to get this in, it's not necessarily resistance, but fortunately, well, this was the pioneering inspiration of Allison. My predecessor, Eric Berger, was leading this team. And so when that was promoted to him to go move into this fashion, he had to be convinced. And so he asked all the right questions and he offered all the right challenges before actually stepping into this space and then going and convincing Cameron and others that we needed to move into this format, into this way, this journey, knowing that it was going to take a long time and it was going to take a lot of investment from these folks, while at the same time of getting skilled up in working in agile fashion, we also had to keep delivering to the business. So you couldn't just say, "Oh, I need to go get trained, so I can't do anything for your business." We had to manage that, and so Eric was very insistent in making sure that we didn't drop the ball with the business as well when it first got started. So I've enjoyed the connection in my onboarding with him and getting into this space as well.
I was going to say, and Eric's a smart guy. So he knew that there was going to be a juggling that had to go on. And to your point, it isn't always resistance as much as it's, I have got many requirements on my time and I've got to get things done. And it maybe didn't move at the same speed because they got distracted by the day job part, but it had to all move forward eventually. A question about how you tracked changes how did you document changes about forward and backward passing in the project? When you gave them the obstacles, how did you keep track of what was happening?
So we had, in addition to our Agile scaling team, we had a project manager that was assigned to this full time. So the transformation was her full-time job. So a lot of the, the risks, the conditions to scale that we were looking at, the things that we needed to solve, this was ran like a project. So that's where we kept track of all of the things that we needed to solve, and some of which we are still working through that we still need to do. So I think you need to have a dedicated, not just sponsorship team, but a dedicated project team that is helping you through this journey to keep all the pieces organized. So we couldn't have done it without our project manager.
Great. So in thinking future facing for Citi, and you're looking at L&D professionals to join your team and you're leaning into Agile, is that going to change what you look for when you hire? Oh, Eric Berger's on the call even. So he heard your shout out. That's nice. What are you going to be looking for a year?
Oh, I should have looked first. I did. That's great that he was on the call. Hey, Eric.
How will being Agile change what you look for in your L&D professionals?
Yeah, so a lot of what we were talking about here. So we're looking for someone who has a passion for adult learning, someone who has a passion for adaptive learning, someone that is willing to step into a new way of working. They have that evidence of being agile in their way of thinking. And so we're asking different questions when we talk to people to join or who wants to come into this organization. I just had a contact last week from someone who said they're investigating whether they want to come into our space because they've always been interested in learning. So the questions that I was asking him were different to see if he would fit into this world, so that because we want to overcome that resistance that we described earlier.
Allison, any additional thoughts on that?
For me, it's about the mindset, right? And so if you can look at things like things around collaboration and collaboration skills and look for growth mindset, I can tell that I'm breaking up a little bit. If you could look for that growth mindset for your interview process, How well do they collaborate? Do they enjoy working as a team? Agile is a team sport. Make no mistake about it. They need to be able to collaborate and communicate and work well with others. And then just naturally, those people that demonstrate growth mindset, curiosity, continuous learning, those are the types of individuals that tend to thrive well in this Agile environment. So those are the things that I look for.
On the flip side of that, I think you sort of alluded to this possibility, at least earlier on, that this might not be for everyone. This way of working. Did you see some people that you could attribute this transformation over the last couple of years, them leaving the organization to this change? I assume it would be a small number, but there probably were a few.
Yeah. Yes, we did. Immediately, actually. And so, and we knew going in, Eric, welcome, I'm glad you're on the call. Eric was such a tremendous force to help us get this off the ground. But that was one of the things that Eric and I talked about right away, is that the potential for attrition in this way of working. When Michael came on board, those were things that he and I talked about as well. Right. So you should anticipate some attrition.
Well, I'm going to test this and come on camera and just say thank you for coming on and telling this excellent story. Michael's right. When we look for next practice winners, we look for data to back up the process and the approach that's being rolled out. And you've definitely got the data to share. And so we really appreciate you coming on and sharing this with everyone today. And members, go on the site and look for the case study. Zeta posted it before, but it's a great read. And we're happy to be supporting and telling this story about Citi's most recent victory, because you guys have done some excellent work in the past, and I predict more in the future. Tom, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Yeah, on that point, what's coming up in the future? I'd like to close maybe with one last question. What is coming up in the future, both you've gotten very far in this Agile transformation, so maybe what's next there, but also just more broadly for learning in your group.
So once we've made the decision to go fully scaled, as I mentioned earlier, in July, we will have everyone that we've identified to be into the squads. And so what we're doing now is a focus on continuous improvement. That what are we doing? Is it working well? So we work from what's called a book of work, and this is work that business projects and business initiatives. So we're getting closer to that, which increases our business acumen, and also managing our what we call backlog, and prioritizing that. And so that we will continue doing that. We will continue building our relationship with our business. We just went through a big restructuring with the entire firm, so there's new people in position, new managers, new business leaders. So we need to make some new connections and rebuild the relationship with the business. While we thought, well, we've got it, but there's new people that are in positions now. So that presents another challenge for us. And so we have to maintain our prioritization of what we can and cannot do, and to increase our work with the business as the business continues to change.
Well, I think we'll close things there. That was a great wrapping up comment. You mentioned furthering connections. Thank you, Zeta, for putting both Michael and Allison's LinkedIn links in the chat if people want to connect with them. Sounds like a great learning and development organization to be a part of, and they're continuing to grow. Also want to note, both in the chat and here on screen, if you have a certification with HRCI or SHRM, these weekly Next Practice Weekly calls are available for recertification credit hours. So just jot down the relevant program ID or activity ID to get your recert credit hour for either HRCI or SHRM. Once again, as Pat said, want to thank both of you, Michael and Allison, for your outstanding award submission, and congratulations on being one of our winners. And thank you so much for coming here today to share the details with this broader audience. It was outstanding.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.